What's up, guys? Episode 23. I actually just filmed this whole episode just to realize that I left the audio from my camera on, so you can just hear all this music in the background. You couldn't even really hear me at all, which is so sad. I have to redo this whole thing. But basically, I'm answering questions from my Instagram broadcast channel. These are going to be very nutrition centric, so let's get after it. Let's try to get through this quickly this time. So, the first question from Sahil Goes Hard. How often do you rely on willpower to not eat undesirable foods? So, first off, if you guys need coaching, hit the link below. The full workout that I'm doing in this video is fully outlined in the description below as well. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, TikTok too, but Instagram preferably. So how do I resist that? So first off, I don't have any bad foods in my house because that's the first thing. You do not want to use willpower to fight that stuff. Just don't even have it near you. Focus on eating the right foods, whole, organic, protein, fiber dense foods, which we'll talk about. And one other thing that my clients go through, and I tell them this at the beginning, like as soon as you guys get on this diet and this lifestyle, after a couple weeks, you're not even going to want to cheat or eat out, but we do have one cheat day a week, sorry. And what starts to happen is when you start to get on this lifestyle and you get so used to eating the right foods and not eating the wrong foods, you start to lose the tolerance for all the BS that the bad foods create. Just like an alcoholic, for example. Alcoholic stops drinking alcohol every day and he does that for a little while, and then he has, some drinks on a Saturday. He's going to feel like they hit him way harder. He's going to be like, "Damn, I can't believe I did this every day." And it's the same feeling you're going to get when you start to prioritize eating the right foods. But it all, of course, it starts with willpower. You do get to a point where you get so used to it. But I mean, you get so used to eating the right foods and not eating the wrong foods. But at first, there is willpower involved, and you don't want to be using too much of your willpower. So get the wrong foods out of your house. Make it a mission for you to go get something if you really are going to get something. But if you have chips and stuff like that in your house, get it out. If you're married, you have kids, stuff like that, and it's a struggle for you, consult with your partner, as people say nowadays. Consult with your wife, or if you're a woman, consult with your husband. Be like, "Hey, partner, do you value me and my health and longevity, and do you want me to live a long, healthy life?" They'll be like, "Yeah." Be like, "Okay, great. Can you stop buying this BS and keeping it in the house? Because I can't stop eating it. You're the reason I'm dying." No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, get it the hell out of your house. That's the main thing. Second one is animal protein. This one comes from Pavandeep Gill. Animal protein with veggies should be prioritized. 100%. I totally agree. Do you eat any? Oh, actually, let's go into that a little bit. So, yes, prioritize what was it? Animal protein and veggies. Yes, absolutely. However, a lot of people do have sensitivities to vegetables, and people don't like. A lot of people are like so convinced that vegetables are absolutely healthy for us and blah blah blah. But think of this: if you were to be dropped on an island, just you, nobody else, you have no help, and you have to survive. Eventually, well, first off, you would be very hesitant to eat any like greens. You'd be very hesitant because you don't know. First of all, you'd be hesitant to touch anything because you'd be like, "Is that going to give me some weird skin rash?" And let alone eat it. Same thing with like wild berries that you might not really recognize. Those could be toxic. This is how humans used to live and think. We avoid these things kind of naturally unless we absolutely know for sure it's edible and we're not going to die. One thing we all know for sure is that if we want to survive, we got to kill an animal and eat it. And even if you were to try to live off the potentially poisonous berries and leaves around you, that wouldn't sustain you for very long. You would eventually have to kill an animal and eat it, I'm sorry to say. So, yeah, I think it's most natural to have animal protein as the bulk of your diet. And not only that, a lot of people do have autoimmune conditions that stem from the gut, whether it be skin related or bladder related or directly the gut related or mind related. All of these things stem from the gut and could be caused by your sensitivity to these plant defense chemicals or oxalates that are really high in plants. And when people remove those, they tend to see a lot of great results. So, animal protein, and I would say fruit, nuts, things like that. I eat a lot of berries and whatnot, but they don't bother me. Fruit Meat and fruit, I think, are because fruit is like the edible, like nature wants you to eat that. So it can spread its seeds and makes it very appealing to us and sweet. I have a hard time eating vegetables. They're not naturally delicious, you know? Some people find them naturally delicious, but a lot of them don't. So when you really think about it, using evolutionary logic, meat, fruit, nuts, these are appealing, edible, delicious things that nature wants us to eat. Honey. So think in terms of that logic. That's how I try to see this whole lens is, you know, nobody can agree on nutrition. There's experts on all sides: keto, carnivore, plant-based, vegetarian, Mediterranean, whatever the hell it is, there's an expert behind it and they will destroy another expert, right? Nobody can really agree. We don't really know. But I think just apply logic, evolutionary logic. What does that lead me to? A bulk majority of meat, eggs, fruit, nuts, honey, and some veggies. Do I eat any sweets? Yes. Lots of fruit, lots of honey. And that question, by the way, was from Mickey__ Tweedle. Thank you for the question. So Hill Goes Hard asks a great question. How do you eat when you're out traveling? This is a very good question, and a lot of people struggle with this. So when I recorded this, I gave you guys two options. This time I'm just going to give you one. This is what I really do. I try to get a work. I don't try. I do. I get a workout in the morning. It's a very simple body weight workout. Usually push-ups and burpees, or burpees and leg lifts, and I'll alternate those depending how long I'm there, how long I'm traveling. And then I'll take advantage of the breakfast. Usually the hotel comes with a breakfast, and usually that means I can have unlimited amounts of eggs, fruit, and yogurt, and maybe honey. So I'll load up on the breakfast. Honestly, try to get like a bulk majority of my protein for the day in at breakfast. That's my priority. Get the protein in, because usually when you're traveling, you're moving, you're walking a lot, so you don't have to worry too much. And then outside of that, I enjoy myself. I don't go crazy. I don't overeat. Usually we don't overeat too much when we travel because, again, we have to move. We're with other people. We're not in our little comfortable house watching Netflix, just binging. So I would say enjoy yourself. Try to get a lot of your protein in at breakfast. And that's it. You know, move a lot. Get your workout in, too. Make sure you get a workout in. That's huge. On an Next question, Dillard_Doggett. On animal-based diet but still crave sweets, what's a healthy option? That's a no-brainer. Lots of honey and lots of fruit. If you do have a craving for sweets, take a spoonful of honey, put that sucker in your mouth, and swallow it. That sounds bad. But yeah, you guys, that's exactly what you want to do. Have lots of honey, use that as your friend, don't feel guilty about it, and do not eat anything else. Do not resort to the cookies or the whatever you might be craving. And if you're still hungry after after the honey, have some fruit, preferably high fiber fruit like a sweet, juicy apple. It's very hard to overeat apples, and they will curb the craving. The next question is from Benzo.K. A meal prepped lunch you would make using your diet. So my staple of my diet is pretty much a pound of lean meat and 4 to 6 eggs. So for me, what I would do if I were like going to the office and I had to pack a lunch is I would probably just bring raw organic nuts and fruit. Raw organic nuts are really calorically dense. They're high in protein, high in fat. They give you a lot of energy. And the fruit, high in fiber and high in carbs, will also give you a lot of energy, keep you satiated. And both do so without weighing you down. So you kind of still maintain that sharpness that you might have from the fasting, because I do intermittently fast every day. And then you have just enough to give you energy, not make you feel uncomfortable, give you everything that you need to feel sustained, that you can continue your workday and whatnot. And then you come home and then you can feast. That's what I would personally do, because I don't like to eat too much during the day anyway. Even though I don't go into the office, I still don't really eat my main meal until like 5, 6 p.m. And before that, I'm just having like cottage cheese, honey, fruit, nuts, just sustenance, stuff to sustain you. That's how I would do it. The next question is Sarah_Mendez MTZ. Is there a vegetarian approach you recommend? If I were to go vegetarian, I'd probably eat exactly the same way I am now. I would just probably eat some more rice and oatmeal, because rice and oatmeal do have some protein. They have more carbs and calories and stuff, because you're not going to be eating meat, right? So I would have more eggs, more dairy, more nuts, more rice, more oatmeal, and maybe even more vegetables depending on the vegetable. But you could easily make that work, actually. Vegetarian is not as bad as vegan. No offense, but when you're vegan, you're missing out on just prime nutrition, and there's no doubt about it. There's a reason why being a vegan is a privilege of modern living, because without supplements and whatnot, it would be very hard to thrive. You would potentially survive, but it'd be very hard to thrive, and potentially not even survive because you are lacking very important nutrients that you need to supplement if you are vegan. So that's not the way to go. But vegetarian, you could definitely make it work. Gary underscore Kern. But I wouldn't. Sorry, let me go back to that. I personally wouldn't do that because you are going to have to eat a little bit more high inflammatory foods, even though people think meat and eggs are inflammatory. If you think meat and eggs are inflammatory, try going on a diet where you just eat meat and eggs and see how much weight you lose, how much muscle you retain, and potentially even build, and how clear your skin will get, how thin you will get overall, and how all the inflammation will just leave your body. Try it if you don't believe me. Gary underscore Kern. If I look at food, I gain weight. How do I live without using a calorie counter? You're looking at the wrong food. If you look at the right food, whole, organic, nutritious foods that fill you up properly and give your body the nutrients, protein, fiber that it needs, you're not going to gain weight. So it's two things, guys. Not calorie counting. It's eating the right foods at the right times. That optimizes your hormones, keeps you from being hungry at the wrong times and from wanting to binge and not feeling satiated. And it's not about focusing on restriction. It's about focusing on abundance, actually, eating an abundant amount of protein, abundant amount of fiber, and then it's very hard to overeat or eat anything else. So you're just looking at the wrong foods, my friend. That's all. The next question, how to use Slappy Nuts 2? It's a great name. If you're still watching, make sure you smash that like and subscribe button. Like and subscribe buttons. How use nutrition to burn fat? Slappy Nuts 2. Everything that I just said, that's really it. If you guys prioritize protein and fiber and whole organic nutritious foods in a time restricted window, you will lose weight. And more specifically, you will lose fat. And if you're working out and or, like I said, prioritizing protein, you will cling on to, if not build muscle, 100%. So I do think the training is important, though. If you want to really burn fat, like, yes, of course, you'll just drop body fat if you eat the proper foods at the right times, but you can really accelerate that with kettlebell training. High intensity cardio mixed with resistance training all in one with kettlebells. That's how you really shred the fat quickly and keep the muscle on, if not build muscle. Next question is Murphy.Milo asks, how to keep a consistent diet and what to buy from the grocery store. So when I first recorded this, I just read you guys my grocery list, and I will do the exact same thing right now. So 6 pounds of meat every week. This is what I get from the groceries when I go. I go to the groceries once a week. 6 pounds of meat, 3 dozen eggs, kimchi, raw cheese, raw sharp cheddar cheese, 6 to 10 apples, 1 pound of mixed raw nuts, frozen fruit, 2 egg white cartons, 3 cottage cheese little things, 3 Greek yogurt things. And that's pretty much it. Keep it super simple. Sometimes I'll get bananas too. Sometimes I'll switch up the fruit. I'll try different fruit. But I try to keep everything pretty much the same. You know, it's like really meat, eggs, cottage cheese, and Greek yogurt are like my staples, and nuts. And then I'll just try different fruit. You know, usually though, I like to stick with apples, bananas, and berries. That's my preference. Might sound super boring, but again, I don't restrict myself. Some days I eat more, some days I eat less. I have that good relationship with my body because I control the time that I eat. I control what I eat, but I don't control the amount that I eat. I will eat more on certain days, and I will listen to my body and fuel it as it's needed, because some days you just simply need to eat more. Next question. Adnan_Bajrik_02. How can I gain muscle mass without gaining fat if possible? Everything that I just said. So prioritize protein, prioritize fiber, eat at the right times, and do workouts like this. Workout details are in the description below, but that you'll 100% recomp your body. And all my clients do this. You'll lose your fat, you'll build muscle, you'll lose fat in all the right areas, build muscle in all the right areas, and that's the way to do it. Short, intense workouts that combine resistance training with high intensity cardio, like so. Next question, ABCD02134, one of the most creative names out there. No, I'm just kidding. Appreciate your question. What are your meals like on a typical day and when you splurge? It's a good question. So, the last time I splurged, which was last weekend, I splurge once a week, maybe less than that, but try to actually do once a week just to enjoy myself. I don't go too crazy. I just have one meal. I had Dave's hot chicken. I'm sure a lot of you know what that is. Absolutely amazing. Had two sliders, French fries, a large milkshake. I go all out. I have a crazy appetite, by the way, guys. I can eat a lot of food. Like, I will go hard on a cheat day. I will splurge. That's why I limit myself. Um, that's why I don't limit myself. Even like during the week when I'm eating good, whole organic, nutritious foods, I can eat a lot. But you notice there's no inflammation. My abs stay the same. But as soon as I start to add like grains or bread or anything like that, that's out the window. And I got to be careful about how much I eat. But one day a week doesn't really do anything. So that's what I had. And meals on a typical day. So I'll just tell you what I've been typically doing. I'll break my fast around noon to 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. Just totally depends how busy I am. And I'll usually break my fast with just some cottage cheese and raw organic honey. And then after that, if I'm still hungry before my main meal, I have some fruit, maybe some nuts. And then I'll have my main meal, which is a pound of lean meat, which is either venison, bison, elk, or grass fed beef, and a pound of that with 4 to 6 eggs and some melted raw cheese on top. And that's pretty much. Oh yeah, no, sorry, that's not it. And I'll throw some kimchi on top of that. I'll have that meal. It's one of my favorite. That's my staple meal right there. And then I'll have a parfait. So like plain Greek yogurt, organic raw nuts, berries, lots of different berries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, strawberries, and then top it off with raw organic honey. And if I'm still hungry after that, I'll have maybe some more raw cheese or maybe more nuts or maybe more fruit and just listen to my body. And then I'll usually stop eating about 2 hours before I go to bed. That's my rule. Next question, David Snow 84, protein and calorie intake. I do not count either, but I prioritize the hell out of protein. Everything that I eat is loaded with protein, so I'm definitely getting upwards of 150 grams a day probably. Today is underscore Racha. What's better for losing fat, low fat or low carbs for gaining muscle, plus gaining muscle? That's a good question. So I personally don't demonize any of the macronutrients. I have no restriction on carbs, fats, or protein. I just eat as much protein as I can. But I would say through my experience, I've seen really, really good. I haven't. Yeah, I would say I see really, really good results with high fat, high protein, or like high protein, moderate fat, lower carb, high protein, low carb, normal or more fat. What people don't realize is fat is such an important molecule. It's actually, so what I learned in biochemistry, you guys can look this up. Fat is the most efficient fuel source for the human body. It's the preferred fuel source, believe it or not. So when you feed yourself tons of fat and you don't cloud it with the carbohydrates, you force it to use fat as fuel, which makes you more metabolically flexible, which is what we're looking for. And and not to mention all of your cell membranes, all of the things that make up your molecules, your steroids, your hormones, your testosterone, all of that, the building block is fat. So you need a lot of fat. Fat is extremely good for you, and it definitely raises your testosterone, does all of that. And when you, like for me, I actually, like if you were to split up my macronutrients, I'm probably a much higher protein and fat diet, and the carbs are much lower. And the carbs that I do eat, again, are just coming from fruit, honey, vegetables, some vegetables, and dairy, which is super little amount of carbs. And when I do have a lot of carbs with the fruit and honey, it's usually packed with fiber as well. And honey is a different thing, but I would say it's probably more dominated with protein. It most certainly is more dominated with protein and fat, and I think that's optimal. It's absolutely optimal. You want a lot of fat. Fat's been demonized, but it should not be. It's the building block for our molecular biology. Next question. We got how much time? We got about 9 minutes here. Well, we got about 4 minutes actually, because I got to hop on a call. So try to speed this up. Tiz underscore Osama says, what specific meals / recipes you make and what foods you like? I just pretty much went through that, so I hope I answered that already. Do you do some... Okay, so this is from Itchy Chi. Itchy Chi asks, do you do some prolonged fasting, 24 hours or more? So once a week, I will do what's called a steak and egg day. And I've rolled this out to some of my clients, and it works wonders at absolutely torching fat and boosting testosterone. So I fast for 22 hours, and in a 2-hour eating window, I will eat only steak and eggs, usually over a pound of meat, which is a big old ribeye, and probably 6 eggs, 4 to 6 eggs, depending on how hungry I'm feeling. And that's it. We stop eating. That we just have that 2-hour window. Nothing else besides steak and eggs. That's the rule. No fruit, no honey, no nothing. And then we go back into the fasting, and then we wake up the next day and then do the normal lifestyle. But the benefit to that is by fasting prolonged, you're forcing your body to deplete all of its glycogen stores, like really deplete everything and tap into your stored body fat. Get into a bit of ketosis depending on who you are, all that type of, it totally depends on the individual. But for me, I get into a state of ketosis around that hour 20 to 22. And then when I do feed myself with a steak and eggs, what happens is you're feeding yourself with just protein and fat. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. So you force that metabolic flexibility. Your body is still not getting the carbs that it wants. So you're giving yourself all you need to maintain, if not keep building the muscle, because you're giving yourself loads of protein and fat, which you need for testosterone and everything else we just talked about. But you're still not giving it the carbs. So you're still in a bit of a fasted state in that sense. Like you're still not overly spiking insulin or anything like that. So what happens is your body's forced to use different processes to extract glucose from your food. So it goes through processes like gluconeogenesis to convert protein to sugar to glucose, or fat to glucose. And it will go through these processes, which is what we want. You'll see in the video right now, random, I'm telling you to zip your mouth, because what I do in between each set is I only try to breathe through my nose. And I'll put the details for the workout below so you guys know the rest periods and all that. But when you rest, try to only breathe through your nose. It makes things harder. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So you force this metabolic flexibility. So your body has to be converting other molecules into glucose in order to create the glucose, and it only creates the amount of glucose that it really needs. You're not flooding your system with glucose, causing an insulin spike, all that stuff that we don't want. So it keeps you in this fat burning state, induces metabolic flexibility, which is what we are after. Metabolic inflexibility or metabolic dysfunction is the root of all disease and ill will, whatever that means. Ichichi asks another question. Do you have some periodization like bulking cutting phase? No, I don't. Actually, the way that I look at it is all I prioritize is staying as lean as possible while getting as strong as possible and boosting my performance as much as possible. So getting as, cardiovascularly, peaked as I can. I can't find the word right now. Getting as cardiovascular, getting my endurance, my power and my power endurance, both cardiovascularly and muscularly, as high as it could possibly be, while also getting my strength as high as it could possibly be, while staying as lean as possible. And so the way that I do this is I scale, I've been using kettlebells for years. So right now I'm using 228 kilos for like double kettlebell stuff and 128 for some single bell stuff, and also a 40 kilo for certain workouts. And I split these things up. I have a whole methodology that I use, right? But the way that I do it is I stay with these weights for about 6 to 8 months, maybe even longer, maybe 9 to 12 months. And then I scale to the next set of weights. So my next set of weights after I'm done spending time where I'm at right now will be 232 kilos and 148 kilo. And that's what I'll be playing around with for the next year. And I'm 28 right now. I'll be doing this until I'm probably 35 to 36. And then I'll start to really aim for just maintenance and longevity at that point. But I've got all these years to steady bulk is what I like to think about it. But it's not really bulking. I'm not trying to gain weight or anything like that. I'm trying to keep my system as efficient as possible while upping the performance, strength, and power and endurance wise. So that's my goal. So it's a very long-term strategy, which I think we should all take, because that gives your body all the time it needs to adapt physiologically, muscularly, tendons, joints, bones, ligaments, all of that. You want to slowly adapt to the weights that you're using, and then you move on and challenge yourself with new stuff. Let's see. Next question from Vishb, Viishb. What is a typical full day of eating to build muscle and stay lean? Just went through it, so I hope that answered your question. Next question is, how do you overcome late night cravings, especially if you're fasting? That's a really good question. Usually, my strategy is eat as much as I possibly can during the day, so I don't have that problem. But if I do have that problem, I'll just have fruit or honey, and I won't think twice about it. Not twice. I'll even have a spoonful of honey right before I go to bed sometimes if I'm really feeling that way. And it doesn't affect me. You'll notice it doesn't add fat to you, it doesn't add any inflammation. But if you have anything else like a piece of bread or rice or stuff like that, grains and processed food, you will have inflammation. You will not sleep as well. It's totally different. So I would say if you are having that issue, fruit and honey is your best friend, especially fruit. Let's just say fruit because fruit has the fiber. It'll keep you more full, satiate you a little bit more, and not cause such an insulin spike. So that's good. Next question. We got about 3 minutes here. So this will be our last question. Let's do this one. How Dustin Brown IG asks, how do I get popping abs like that? That's a great question. So obviously abs are made in the kitchen. I'll tell you that right now, guys. Like training, no matter how hard you train, if you do not eat properly, your abs will not show. And I see this all the time. You guys can see on Instagram, there's actually a lot of guys out there, savage kettlebell guys doing some savage stuff. Savage just guys in general doing stuff like that. Super strong, super explosive, have good cardio, perform super well, but they just don't look good with their shirt off. No offense. But the reason is because they probably drink beer. They probably have they just, maybe that's just their life. They're like, look, I don't really care about having abs and I feel great. I perform great. I'm going to eat whatever the hell I want and more power to you. But if you want to see your abs, you have to clean up your diet. That's the number one thing. That's going to take, you can clean up your diet and not train and still have popping abs. But if you train super hard and don't clean up your diet, you won't have popping abs. It's pretty crazy. But so diet is one thing that will get your abs to show. And then sorry for the answer you guys probably all expected, but kettlebell training will get your abs to pop. Because as you can see, even doing snatches here, it's like you're doing a bit of a weighted crunch because at the top of the movement, your abs are engaged. So you're doing like a weighted ab workout while you're engaging your full body in this high intensity sort of manner. Sorry, I was distracted by myself pointing at my nose again to remind you guys to try to breathe through your nose in between your sets. It's much more difficult, but it will condition you much better. So yeah, I'd say, kettlebell training mixed with a clean diet like the one that I've talked about on this podcast will absolutely get your abs to pop. No doubt about it. But that's it, guys. If you guys want more details, feel free to ask. Comment below. I appreciate your questions. Follow me on Instagram, join the broadcast channel, and you can influence the content I make, ask me more questions, chat with me, all that type of good stuff. So I appreciate all of you. Make sure you smash that like and subscribe button. And if you want coaching, click the link below to apply. Workout details below as well. Peace out to the next one, guys. God bless.